Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com. And tonight we are going to jump from our usual Indiegogo haunts back over to stroll the streets of Kickstarter. And boy, that was a lot harder to say than it sounded coming out. So lucky me on the first time. We are looking at Spicy Pulp tonight. And with us, we have the Spicy Pulp creator, Mr. Justin Gray, joining us. Justin, how are you tonight, sir?
Good, RJ. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well, sir. Man, I can't count the number of books I have in my collection that are by Mr. Gray Palmiotti. And it seemed like you guys were just joined at the hip there for the longest run of titles.
Yeah, I was just on the phone with him today. We were talking about some stuff, so it's still ongoing.
How did you guys get hooked up the first time around? I mean,
through the magic of the internet, basically. It was right when they took over Marvel Knights, just before where they were in the process of launching Marvel Knights. I had started talking to Joe and Jimmy online, and then one thing led to another, and I kind of told my job I wasn't working that weekend and drove to Chicago and found a hotel room and called all the hotels and found out where they were staying, and I ended up hanging out with them for that weekend. And then shortly after, a few months later, I was interning at Marvel Knights. And that's how we met, really.
Very cool. Yeah, I've written, I've had books published, and I've had, a couple where I've worked with people. How do you do that? I mean, because I was like, mine was like, okay, I'm going to write this chapter. You write the next chapter. We know the outline, but to make it blend together, it seems like a real trick.
It's comics inherently are collaborative, whether it's a writer, an artist, or an artist and inker, or a colorist, letter. There's so many moving parts and so many different components and people involved. So what we would do is we would discuss concepts, larger story arcs, things that we thought were cool or would like to see, and then we would sort of bat ideas back and forth in terms of we would have scenes that one of us would like the scene more than the other, and then we would argue out our scene to say, here's my argument for this, and then they would say with this their argument against it, and it that sounds even more formal than it was. It was just kind of batting ideas around. I liken it a lot to a band. I mean, bands have multiple writers for lyrics and songs, and
This is true.
you just kind of have to. I mean, I don't think I could do it with everyone. We had a really good synergy. We didn't have any ego problems. We didn't, no one was fragile about their ideas. And, if the other person had a better idea, we just said, great, I'll go with that. And, one of us would usually write the first draft, and then the other one would come in and look over it, like laying down tracks. I always go back to music with that, because there is a musicality to all kinds of creative processes. As far as I'm concerned, I equate things that way. So really, it was just laying tracks over tracks, and somebody had a little bit more snare, or somebody had more bass, or something that they wanted to put into it. And we just found a rhythm and a style that worked, for a number of years. And we were at it for about 15 years consistently.
Yeah, it was a very successful run with some classic stories in there. Your Jonah Hex stuff, your Power Girl stuff, all of it very, very enjoyable. So thank you.
I mean, a lot of that's the artist too. I mean, there was a lot of, obviously with Power Girl, you have Amanda, and Amanda brings a whole other, sort of playful toolbox to areas. Her brain works differently from Jimmy and myself. So then you had the Amanda factor, which is always great. And then to work with Jonah Hex in particular was one of my favorite experiences, because it was so many different artists and so many different styles, and it never felt boring. It never felt like it was never a job. It was sort of like, it was like an all-star cast of musicians, and you like, who could we get to play lead guitar? Who could we get to do drums? Who could be singing? So yeah, that was a lot of that goes to the people that we worked with, and the colorists and the letterers and the editors, and it's such a collaborative process.
Yeah, well, the thing I really liked about the Jonah Hex, the All-Star Western books, was that it took Jonah Hex back to what I remember from the Tony DeZuniga days of the series, where it was a true Western adventure story. Since that point, he's gone through the sci-fi phase. He's gone through the I'm in the West, but I'm hunting supernatural things.
We don't know what to do with the character phase. Like, how do we update and make something fresh? I'm like, by the time we got to it, I was like, no, don't do that. I'm like, just make people fall in love with what it was before, because it never got old or boring to me. I never thought spaghetti westerns. I'm not the biggest Oder guy, but the spaghetti western stuff that we put into that was all stuff from the 70s and the 60s and the 80s, and it was stuff that was really had been sort of largely forgotten and glossed over and rarely popped up in places anymore. So
yeah, I mean, he's Clint Eastwood with a scar. There's what more do you need to know, right?
Yeah.
Getting a very active chat here tonight. So you're drawing in a crowd. We have Roy Draws saying hello.
Right.
Creators Outlet, that's Will. He's in here. Spectator says, please tell Justin at some point I'm looking forward to Billy the Kit very much.
There's issue 1. It'll be in stores October 6th from Blue Juice Comics. And I have a few copies of these, and very happy with the response to this book. Sometimes you do stuff and you're like, I'm having fun, and who cares what anybody else thinks? And sometimes other people really dig it. And Billy the Kid seems to be something that is getting a lot of good attention and a lot of buzz about. And I couldn't be happier, because it really was just sort of Barry McLean's the artist, and Slamet Mugiono is the colorist. We were just having fun. We didn't really have that many expectations about a Talking Rabbit comic. And people seem to really like it. So I'm happy about that.
You know what, though? It's when the creators are having fun making the product that the readers truly seem to respond to it. As opposed to, if it's a chore for the writer and the artist, it's a chore for the reader. And it just, something intangible gets imbued into the book, and it carries across. So, write what you enjoy, put out what you love, and the people will follow it. Nefarious has taken a 5-minute break to say hi. Wants us to entertain him before he has to go back to writing comics himself. So, all you crowdfunder folk, you work so hard. But yeah, you're going the crowdfunding way now, and a lot of people would say, well, Justin doesn't have to do that. He's got all these books, all these that he's writing for established publishers, for independent publishers. What drove you to take the Spicy Pulp series to the Kickstarters?
I wanted to do things that I wanted to do, and it was a very selfish move. It was a combination of a couple different things. But I really, when you work for licensed properties, and that's essentially what a bulk of those projects were, there are certain things you can do, certain things you can't do, certain hierarchies and structures within a publishing plan. If, for instance, DC rolls out a massive company-wide publishing plan and you're doing a little cowboy book, then all of a sudden the cowboy book, or if you like even doing Hawkman or doing Batwing, every once in a while we would develop a flow, and then all of a sudden there'd be an event month or there'd be a crossover thing happening. And there's nothing wrong with that, but for me personally, I was invested in the book that I was on. I wasn't necessarily thinking about the architecture of a publishing plan, and sometimes you have to, because sometimes the book struggles and then you need external help or whatever. But for the most part, I wanted to just do things and create things that I was enjoying, that I was not having as much fun in the process and in the feedback from the readership that I wanted to be having. Comics, to me, yes, they're a job. There's a level of professionalism, but you should also enjoy yourself while you're doing them. It's not something you should be grinding out and sort of phoning in. And I had reached a couple points where we were sort of keeping IPs alive. And I was starting to get kind of burned out on keeping IPs alive because no one really cared. It was a mini series about this character from 1942, and all of a sudden, it was just a thing. So I wanted to start doing that, and really crowdfunding, because some of my ideas, I know that there's a landscape in comics whereby which you pitch things to people, and there's trends and there's movements and there's hot creators, cold creators, or whatever you want to say about it. I only care about the books and creating the books. More so than my own vainglorious attempts at anything. So every time I ran into a situation where people were like, oh, okay, there's a good core concept here, but we want to bend it this way or turn it into this kind of pitch, or can we take these elements out? And I started getting kind of frustrated with that. So I said, I might as well just, if there's an audience for it, I'll know it. They'll be out there and they'll support it. And if there's no audience for that, I scrap it. And I say, the audience told me, not someone's taste or a publishing plan or a corporate directive or something like that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of readers, and you hear a lot of grousing about it now, is of the opinion that the publishing industry is just keeping IPs alive with lackluster stories and just repetitive cycles, just so that the movies can continue to come out with the same characters. But you have pulled an audience, because this isn't just Spicy Pulp on Kickstarter. This is Spicy Pulp number 6. So right. You've had 5 previous successes with this. Is it meeting up to your expectations, or you still feel like you're gathering a head of steam with it?
I think one of the things about myself is that I like doing different things all the time. So I have different expectations for certain things. For instance, I said with Billy the Kid, it was strictly just for fun. It was just kind of like, we're having a blast, and there were no expectations. And then with Spicy Pulp, it was more of a thing where I had these ideas, not just the stories themselves or the characters, but I had a concept where I was tired of sort of hammering out these really quick 20 some odd page chapters. And I thought I wanted to do an anthology type thing. I wanted to do a thing that was structured for the reader more so than anything else, in the sense that with Spicy Pulp, I said, okay, I'm going to do a 60 some odd page story, but I'm going to break it in half. And I'm going to do issue 1 has 30 pages of a 2-part story. And then that goes back to Jonah Hex, where we did self-contained stories, or we did 2 issue story arcs. And, I wanted people to read something and feel satisfied in a short amount of time. And Kickstarters sometimes take a while. And Spicy Pulp in this one has 3 different artists and 3 different stories and different colorists, and everyone's working on a different timeline. So I wanted to make 60 to 64 page books that gave you 2 issues, gave you a complete big story, a 60, 64 page story, and then smaller self-contained stories or smaller serialized stories. And people have responded to that, and they have enjoyed, I've had success with those. It's been an interesting, because every Kickstarter campaign is different, but consistently I know how each audience starts to break down, and the work I have to do to get more people to read. Spicy Pulp is different from having to do a book like Stand Still and other books that I've done. You have different audience, different expectations, and part of that is fun to me. And it's a struggle, and most people probably don't enjoy that. But I like learning about the people that like the books and why they like them, and finding a happy place between myself and the reader. Because at the end of the day, it's not me just taking a check from a publisher. It's me and the readers, and that's the stopgap. There's nothing in between those. There's no other mitigating factors.
Yeah, without digging into your tax records or anything like that,
Right.
do you find that doing it like on a Kickstarter is more financially rewarding than any single issue would have been for a publisher?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
If I could do cancellation numbers at DC or Marvel, I would be very, very happy, because the overhead's different, the costs are different. Selling 8,000 copies of Spicy Pulp is very different than selling 8,000 copies of Power Girl or Hawkman or something like that, where that's a loss leader with a company that has a building in Manhattan or in Hollywood, California, or wherever, Burbank. That there's a very different financial reward on that. So yeah, if my comics were selling 8,000 to 10,000 copies, I would be doing much better, for sure.
Well, we want to see that happen, of course. So because
Right.
The stories look entertaining. You've got 3 main characters in here. Let's find a good place to talk about them here, because what are we looking at here? We're jumping right into the stretch goals, or not stretch goals, but you just added the stretch goals. Okay. So
yeah, we've knocked down 2 of the stretch goals. In the first week, we funded and we've knocked down 2 of the stretch goals. So I'm already contemplating, with any luck, hopefully halfway through, we can add some more stretch goals that are exciting and interesting.
Yeah, and your first stretch goal you unlocked is the die cut sticker of your character, Strawberry Milk.
Yep.
So I happen to like Strawberry Milk, but I don't know how you would come up with naming a character after that.
I have gone through this weird sort of naming thing. I don't know what it is. Like, is watching anime, reading manga, and they always have these ridiculous kinds of names that don't necessarily translate well to English, but they sound kind of funny. And I can't remember the name. There was something with a pumpkin. I remember it was an anime, and I was laughing. I was like, "That's a great name, even though it's so ridiculous." So I started coming up with these names. And initially, Strawberry Milk was going to be Banana Cannon, and then Banana Cannon I couldn't get it to work right. It was about this girl with this sentient gun, and it was this giant anime style gun that she had to lug around with her all the time, but it was always complaining and didn't work right all the time. And then I started toying with the idea of this ridiculous. Like, I like to think sometimes of ridiculous ideas just for fun, and every once in a while I sort of fall in love with them. So it was this idea of whether or not, what would happen if Lobo and Strawberry Shortcake had a kid that was a space, a space character that just happened to protect intellectual properties for different planetary cultures. So the idea came together of Strawberry Milk was that she was hired an assignment. She didn't want to do the assignment, and she had to protect or eliminate protect a planet or eliminate a species that are basically culture vampires. They get a hold of all the things that are great about your culture, like a fandom, and then they commercialize it, overpopularize it, consume it, and then it becomes boring. Pumpkin Scissors, yes. That was it, Mike. Yeah,
Mike Walters is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to this stuff. He's always in our chat. He's like, "Oh, I know the answer to that obscure reference."
No, that's great, because I love those kinds of wacky titles. And my daughter was going through a period where she was reading a lot of manga and watching anime, and she would come at me with these titles, and then I would make sort of jokes about them, and she would get offended. But then every once in a while, we'd find a name that we would settle on and we would like. So that's what I wanted to do, this thing. And evidently this species got a hold of an old Earth probe that had a bunch of Elvis memorabilia in it, and they absorbed that. So she's fighting all these sort of alien Elvis impersonators on this planet. And
I love the idea.
It's just fun. It was a fun, like, that's the thing that I finally went to a convention. I went to Terrificon in Connecticut, and it was nice to say, when I was having conversations with people, I haven't had conversations with fans in a long time, and they were like, you keep talking about fun. I was like, I just want to have fun. Like, can't you just pick up a comic and enjoy it for what it is and not have to know 8 million years of backstory and every nuanced element of the character where everything's an in-joke and dialogue?
You didn't have to. You didn't have to. I mean, Batman had, 40 years of history when I started reading him, but in the 70s and 80s, I could pick up any Superman, any Batman, any Spider-Man. Didn't matter what happened, even if it was the second part of a story. Yep. You could tell on that first panel what had happened and how you got here. You didn't have to go back 12 issues. And this idea of doing, 2-issue story arcs, even the one and done, that's a lost art in comics. And you're seeing people get hired on for, scores of issues for a contract. And that, well, that's the one story they've got to tell is going to take 80 issues, 100 issues. Nobody wants to hang on for that.
And you also want to have a career, so you end up, I think sometimes people stay on characters after their initial great idea, and some people can walk onto a character and do a 6-issue arc that's fantastic, and like that's really all they have to say. But you don't want to give up that gig.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you're like, well, I'll just come across the next thing, or they're not even cognizant of it sometimes. But that's the nature of the industry. It's so driven by serialization, and it keeps cannibalizing. It cannibalized film, it cannibalized TV, and then we got down to that. You got to read a paragraph on the inside cover of what happened previously for the, whatever. And I was getting really tired of that. I was like, can't we just put that in the dialogue? Can't we just catch people up? Can't we just not necessarily have to make it that convoluted where it's a 12 structured story thing where you need to memorize diagrams, part of an alien language. And, the design stuff looks great. I love it. But when you just can't pick up a comic and read it, I can understand picking up book 5 of the Dune series and being like, I'm not exactly sure what's happening here.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a comic, I think that you should be able to do that. Just grab it and read it and have satisfaction from that, however long it is.
Well, we've unlocked the die cut sticker for Strawberry Milk, and I'm a big sticker guy. So since the back of my laptop is covered and now my Lego workspace is starting to fill in with stickers, I'll be finding a spot for Strawberry Milk after I back it.
Thank you. I just got those today. I just got a whole big box of those today since we passed.
How big are they? Are they tiny, or are they?
Hold on, I'll go get one. I'll be right back.
I'll give you the full screen. I'll keep talking. The other stretch goal that's been unlocked is the Strawberry Milk mini print. So there is a mini print that is also unlocked now. It's already there. You back the book, you're going to get these 2 stretch goals automatically. This is Strawberry Milk munching on a strawberry and wearing some strawberry print. So that's a pretty cool print there. I'm probably 11 by 17, not sure. It's a mini print, so maybe it'll be smaller than that. I kept talking while you were gone.
No, that's fine. Sorry, I should have had him up here, but so my camera is like so high resolution. It's ridiculous.
I got the same issue. Yeah, that's cool. That's going to look great.
So it's die cut. It's Ali Garza is the artist.
And we were just talking about the mini print that is also unlocked. Letting people know, all they got to do is back, and boom, they're already getting the 2 extra things that they don't have to really consider.
Yep, they're already included, and we're working our way towards. And I have one of those up here, sure. I have the metal card.
Oh, let's get you back up here on the screen. The Dude Bro the Barbarian.
Dude Bro the Barbarian, which is in Spicy Pulp 3, 4, and 5, as a complete story with those 3 chapters. And that's Antonio Brandao is the artist and Sean Forney is the colorist. They do great work. That is one of the many characters that are in Spicy Pulp. It is my love letter to Savage Sword of Conan and some fun stuff. It's sort of a sword and sorcery rom-com, but it's also raunchy. It's very raunchy, I should say.
Sure, because it's spicy. Now,
yes, it's spicy.
And I know there's panels in here that have been, blackbarred to heck. So it gets rather mature in places, I'm guessing. I don't know if it's just like nudity mature or content mature.
It's nudity mature. It's not a triple X or anything like that. It's not
Penthouse Comics then.
No.
Yeah.
I actually just read a bunch of those recently, and they could have been better.
Well, yeah, we were there for the art. We were there for the art.
Yes.
In quotes. Neon Diva. Now I missed this name when I was scrolling through earlier because I was looking at the actual character prints. But at 22K, you're going to get a mystery print by Alessio Nocerino.
Yep.
Ugh, stumbled over that name.
That's right.
Is she a new character or it?
She is a new character. Alessio and I have been hammering out details on her look and her style. A lot of it's based on when I was driving for Instacart during the lockdown with quarantine for everyone. So I thought it'd be an interesting thing to do this sort of. I wanted to do an alternate 80s sci-fi, cyberpunk, kill fest kind of character. And I had the name Neon Diva for a while, and it's gone through a bunch of different incarnations. At one point, I was talking to Eric Larson about it. He loved the name, and I just kind of had to shelve it for a while. So that's something that Alessio and I are going to work on for the future, but that'll be a print of the design of the character. So that'll be the first time anybody's seen it.
Okay, well, that's another good reason to back this because you'll have the very first appearance, so to speak, of Neon Diva.
Yep.
Your main character is Lady Redbeard, and with this, I officially christened the birth of another genre, which is the female space pirate. In crowdfunding, we're seeing cycles of genres come out. There's, all of a sudden everyone's doing a werewolf book. All of a sudden everyone's doing a Western book. Weirdly enough, all of a sudden everyone's doing a creature as a cowboy in a Western book. So you got, octopuses and gorillas riding on horseback.
6-gun gorilla, yeah.
Yeah. So, I just a few weeks ago finished Pirate Queen from Clint Helinsky and Mandy Summers. So now I'm seeing Lady Redbeard, another lady space pirate, with totally different look, but the same level of psych on it. So I'm kind of hoping to wow, I hope that Justin and Clint get together at some point and just do one of these indie crossover things because it's so much easier for you guys than it is for the big companies to draw up contracts and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot less moving parts.
Yeah. So what's the why do people want to be interested, aside from the obvious, in Lady Redbeard?
Lady Redbeard started out as again a fun character idea that jumped into my head, and I thought I wanted to do a pirate for the longest time, and I was a huge fan of Butch Guice's swashbuckler character, and I started writing it sort of more as a Manara type storyline. I wanted it to be this sexy pirate. It was 17th century. And I just started writing itself. It just started being this thing where I was like, okay, I'm doing a normal pirate thing. And I kept saying, well, this is what we always see. So then I did this. And I was like, all right, well, let's throw a sea monster in here for absolutely no reason. It's a period piece. And then all of a sudden it's a fantasy piece. And then all of a sudden she's washed up on a beach on an island in the Bermuda Triangle. And she's lost the majority of her crew. She's only got a handful of people left. So they start to explore the island in that sort of old Ray Harryhausen type of thing. And I'm like, what if they found a space shuttle? And they find a space shuttle. And I'm like, what if there's zombie dinosaurs on the island? So then there's zombie dinosaurs on the island. And it's just sort of this progression of fantastical element after fantastical element for her and her crew to go through this thing. So that as they're escaping one threat, they're finding another threat. And they realize that they're just sort of trapped in this place where anything can happen. And
that's the magic of comics. The magic of somebody with an imagination making comics. It's like playing Calvin ball with the real Calvin. It's like, hey, what if? And you're up on a totally new game.
Exactly.
Same ball, same character, same players. I love it. Anything can happen.
So that was the first story arc. So Spicy Pulp 1 and 2 featured Lady Redbeard. And it was sort of an introductory tale without it being an origin tale. I like the idea of just throwing you into the characters. And then if there's information you need to know that's essential to just have a better understanding of the character, then we'll do that. But we won't do it as like day one. I go to high school sucks. I wish things were better. I wish I had a girlfriend. I get bit by a spider. Now all of a sudden I have superpowers. Now all of a sudden I have a costume. Now all of a sudden I have a girlfriend. and all of a sudden I have more problems. As much as I love those things, I didn't want to do a linear block origin story. So then I did the next 2 issues of Spicy Pulp feature a character called the Road Witch. And again, you just get thrown into her origin story. And you see she's over 300 years old. She was cursed by a witch. She's possessed by that same witch, and she's using that witch's power for good instead of evil. And it ends up being this much larger story about when she encountered the witch, things that happen come back to haunt her hundreds of years later. And I also like the idea of, and I mean, I don't like the idea. It's just one of those things that popped in my head because you drive on highways and you see the memorials for people who have crashed and had accidents and died, and there's crosses and flowers and stuff. And I started thinking, is there, what if there was a way to summon a powerful spirit from that location to avenge something that had happened? Maybe the person that had an accident was murdered, or maybe something was, an injustice. So that you would summon this road witch and she would have to do your bidding.
Yeah, and I scrolled far down on here because I wanted to get some imagery up here of the Road Witch while you were talking about her. I love this whole Ghost Rider / Lady of Death, not Lady Death, but Lady of Death kind of image. Because that staff, I'm thinking, okay, that's like a broomstick, but then that fire comes out and it's like, oh, that's a scythe. That's I mean, you're the writer, so I'm going to assume that at some point you're the art director as well. That tells the artist this is what she has, this is what it looks like. So well done on that imagery. It's I can't believe it hasn't been done before. But
I don't know. There were all those elements that I wanted to, and originally all Spicy Pulp was supposed to be a love letter to the 70s and 80s comics that you can't really seem to make anymore. They were politically incorrect at times. I mean, all those old Savage Sword of Conan comics, they went in and had to cover up all the ladies, and they had to change most of the innuendos and sort of kid it down a little bit from what it originally was. And a lot of those comics, I had a hold of them when I was probably too young to have them, and I appreciated that more so when I was older.
Oh yeah, I hid the Vampirellas, and I'm talking I'm talking the old Warren Publishing black and white Vampirellas.
The black and white magazine size. Yeah, those were great.
Yeah, they were great. So I make a joke about it now when we do our we have a side show with Marmalade. He's a puppet host. He talks to people about comics and has them on the show. But he asked, "Am I old enough to read your comic, or do I have to put it under the bed with my Vampirellas?" Which is pulling from what I did when I was his age, I suppose. We haven't talked about the tiers yet on here. I want to get to that. A lot of people do ask for digital in our chats. So I'm glad to see that you do have, you not only have a digital, but you have a really cheap digital. I'm not sure how many pages an issue is. I think it's 30 for the story, and then you got the 2 backups. So I'm guessing.
They're at least 60. They're 60 to 64 pages.
Yeah, so that's a great deal for a digital. $5 for a 64-page book. And for $10, you got that backup, or not backup, catch up from 5 and 6, because I believe this would be the second part of a story that began in 5.
The conclusion to when she gets thrown in space prison. Yes.
So that's you don't have to catch up all the way from 1.
No.
Do you have an option where people can buy the library?
Yep, you can get all 6. I look at the digital as a point of entry a lot of times, because by the time we get further into these things, we're in issue 6. So I really want, if I want it to be accessible for people if they want to go back and collect them all, because in certain, like I said, Dude Bro is only in 3, 4, and 5. So you might pick up 5 and 6, and you catch the end of the Dude Bro story, and you might be like, well, I want to know what happened to lead to this point. That's one of the ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I love that. While we got it up on the page here, you've got the 2 different covers for issue number 6. One's going to be, Lady Redbeard, and the other one's going to be a bit more Lady Redbeard, who, by the way, doesn't have a beard. So I haven't bothered asking how your name came up there. I'm not sure I want to know.
Yes, it is me being tongue-in-cheek, so to speak.
And then, are these all the covers as well here?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Then there's the strawberry milk variants. because I asked the artists, which ones that they wanted to draw. Ali was very big on that's Jose Haro, and Ali wanted to do Strawberry Milk, and then Jose did 3 variations of his cover, which I thought was great.
Yeah, you get the neon pink. My mouse isn't cooperating here, and this black and white one. It's not just black and white though. It's got this this stippling effect.
Yeah, it's
like
got a sort of a retro look to it, and I'm going to do that on a really nice silvery paper.
Oh, that's going to look sweet. And then you've got this. This
which
this
is an homage to the Elvis
style. I can't remember
Presley movie.
Yeah, it's a movie poster. It's a movie poster cover kind of. So
yeah, it's the Viva Las Vegas Elvis Presley and Margaret movie, and Ali wanted to do a variation of it for Viva Space Vegas.
It's you're going to make it very difficult to choose which covers to get, which of course leads to people getting all of them. So
and Francesco did this one.
Yeah, now this is just gorgeous. This is kind of a Renaissance painting kind of look to it.
Yep.
And then you've done something here that I've not seen anybody do on crowdfunders. I think people, if they're overlooking it, they should take a moment to appreciate this, because you're showing close up of the stock of the paper that's going to be used for both the pages and the cover. So people can get a real good idea of just the quality of the book that they're going to get here.
I like to try to do different things with the cover stocks. With Standstill, we do these paper covers. They're all one color, and then there's a spot finish on the blacks, and I think it looks really interesting, and it doesn't look or feel like anything else.
Yeah, spot finish on black is always very cool. You're gonna have some metal trading cards in here.
Yep.
This is are you taking advantage of the add-on capability of Kickstarter?
Yes.
Or are you putting them on to? Okay, great.
Yeah, there's a lot of add-ons in the back end of it. Once you back one thing, you'll have access to seeing all of those. And there's some single issues available from previous campaigns that I have a limited number of that I'm making available.
Yeah, because you're right at the point now where you should start to run out of number ones, because people coming in here should really want to get those number ones. So this is a metal trading card set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now, and of course you've got an adult one in the set.
Yep.
Adult-ish. But it's eight trading cards.
Yeah, there's 8 metal trading cards in that set.
Yeah, and this is the image I really liked of your Road Witch here. I mean,
it's another Ali Garza piece.
I've heard that name, so I've seen that work around somewhere before. And then of course all the add-ons are down here. Work with me, mouse wheel. Come on, please. I got to get a new mouse. I scroll down, the page goes up, and then it falls. So it's like something is in mouse just messing with me.
I just had a similar problem.
Yeah, I'll just look over here. The book itself, you want to get the book, it's $20. That's a deal for the paper books, considering the stretch goals that have already been hit and the stretch goals that are going to get hit. There's no doubt in my mind that at least the next 2 are going to be covered, and you're probably already working on, well, what are we going to add on now that we're hitting them?
Right.
Any ideas that you can share what you're considering?
No, not yet, because I'm talking to some people art-wise to see what I can come up with.
People like patches.
Right.
People like patches. People like action figures, not action figures like in a bubble card, although they like those too.
Right.
But 3D print characters are a lot a more cheaper route that some people go. So you could give us some strawberry milk statuettes.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten down to that point yet.
But you're $20 for the standard, $25 for the strawberry milk cover by Jose and Sean, and then here's the digital collection I was asking about earlier. You can get all 6 issues for $30. George, Robert, if you're in the chat listening and you haven't commented, but you're out there, I know you're our digital people. Jump on this one. Let us know you backed. Give us our shake and bake moment, if you would, please. And then for $30, you can get that painted cover with Lady Redbeard, gorgeous painted cover. Of any of the covers, that one as a print would probably be, well, all the covers as prints would be great add-ons for anybody, including, of course, the Lady Redbeard Adults Only cover by Jose. And each of these does come, by the way, with a PDF. So if you want to read your spicy pulp while you're on the road in the passenger seat, and you've left your comics at home
safely.
Yeah. Say, I mean, granted, I may watch Netflix while I go down the interstate, but that's me. I'm not reading comics. By God, I'm not crazy. I'm just a little stupid.
Stay safe.
Yeah. So you've got the metal print now. Is that when we say metal print, is that full 8x10 or is that 11x17 or?
It is comic cover size, so it fits within the packaging.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah,
that's exactly the one I could see as a print. That needs to go in a frame.
So
everyone's doing metal lately. It's and because it's popular, it's a great.
The color looks great. I mean, I had this is the first time I'm doing any metal stuff. I had wanted to do it, and I just hadn't gotten it all together. And I like it. The colors really pop.
Yeah, we did. I'm not going to grab it because it's over there. But we did. We usually do trophies for our best of the year stuff. We had engraved etched glasses. I was like, I want to do something different because I wasn't really happy with the etching anymore. We got medals on like ribbons, and I was like, well, can you engrave those? He's like, well, I can do better than that. We can do metal dye sublimation. I'm like, how good is that? And he said, give me a day with your logo. I came back. He threw this round coin at me, this disc. I'm like, this is plastic. He's like, no. Put it up to a magnet. It's like, this is metal. It's like, it's too bright and it's too much clarity to think that it's on metal, but it is, and it's in the metal. So
yeah, man, I had been looking at an acrylic block, but I really, which I might still do because I do think they look great, but I just wanted to try doing some metal stuff, and this is one of the part of the trading card set.
Oh, let me pop that up here where people can see it better. Yeah, that's. I get this urge when I'm holding one of those to see if I can stick it in the wall, but like a ninja with a throwing star.
Yeah. Well, we don't want you to kill anybody with this bullseye.
No. Don't go playing Gambit with them. So this is what I was looking for. $120. Oh, this is not what I was looking for, but I like it that I found it. $120. You get all 5 of the main covers. For you completionists out there, $140 you get all 5 covers plus a holofoil bundle. So tell us about
all the 5 covers are holofoil, so that's what you get with that one.
Okay. So
just like when you scroll up, there's a video of the card that I showed you that I had done as a holofoil cover and print with the last one.
I'm getting there. Oh, this is the holofoil card right here.
Yeah.
I'd play it, but I've learned that sharing videos on StreamYard, there's a lag. That's why I stole your video and ran it up front separate from rather than share it.
No, that's fine.
So I think I'm down to the bottom of the page here. I really want to get into this one and see what the add-ons are, and start adding them on. And you just kick this off. We got not plenty of time. Let's not say that, but you've got 20 days.
3 weeks. There's 3 weeks left. That we hit this goal and started unlocking within the first 7 days. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you, everyone.
Now, your Kickstarter exclusively, you don't start with Kickstarter and then jump over to Indiegogo afterwards?
I have not done that. I have talked to some friends. I had a long conversation with Billy Tucci in Connecticut about that and his wife, Deb. We talked for a little bit about that. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, because there's math to be worked out. there's processes. I know I've talked with Kara Nicole because I was like, how did you get your Kickstarter, your Indiegogos to get to 35,000? She's like, well, you roll the money over from the Kickstarter. It's not like you don't even start a second one. You just tell Kickstarter to give Indiegogo the money, and then you just start with that as a base and go on from there. You're instantly funded. And I guess the advantage is that you go into on demand or in demand with
Right.
Indiegogo, and you just keep it open as a store. So it's a cheap way of having an online store.
Which I also
So we know we're going to see Neon Diva for the first time on a print in this.
right.
Fairly confident you're going to hit that number. Do you have other characters that you're thinking of that might start making their way into Spicy Pulp? I mean, you give the others a rest for a while, let them sit out a couple issues, and then bring them back.
Well, I might actually give this a rest because everything wraps up. I wrap up a story, and everything in this particular issue is all self-contained short stories around the finishing Lady Redbeard story, and I think I'm going to start focusing on, because I'm at issue 8 of Standstill is going to be done in about 6 pages, so it'll be done in October, and we've been doing that book consistently as a monthly book with kickstarting 2 issues at a time. And then the artist who's doing Lady Redbeard with this 2-part story, he and I sat down and we sat down figuratively because he's in Brazil. We discussed like what we would like to do next, and we kicked around a couple of different ideas. And one of the things that we settled on was this book called I Eat Monsters. And we started just sort of clicking on that. And I sat down and I wrote probably 40 pages in 2 days of script for that. And I thought, this might be the thing I want to do next. So those 2 books, I think, going into the first part of 22 is going to be focused on those books, making sure that they're all set up. And then I have a bunch of material for the next Spicy Pulp book, which includes Neon Diva. It might include this character called Roxy Rocket. I'm not sure yet.
I think she's used.
Is she?
Yeah, Roxy Rocket's a Batman the Animated series character.
Oh, well, its names can change easily. It wasn't even her first name, but it's well, I mean, people steal our book titles all the time. There's 3 different titles I think Jimmy and I came up with, create our own stuff, and then we weren't allowed to use Splatterman. We got hit with a cease and desist on Splatterman by CBS Viacom because they already own that character name. They're not doing anything with it, but they own it.
It's hard to tell that they own it if they're not doing anything with it.
Right, but legally, I guess you know how that stuff works.
Yeah. Because I didn't know if you were how big you were looking to spread out underneath whatever publishing imprint you want to call what you're doing, and use Spicy Pulp as sort of like your showcase book, like DC did. Like, let's put a character in here. If people really like it, then we'll put them in their own book, and end up having Strawberry Milk in her own book, and having Lady Redbeard in her own book, and then bringing new characters into Spicy Pulp to try that.
Yeah,
out.
there are elements of that. In fact, what I was looking at doing with I Eat Monsters is moving it over to a thing called Bloody Pulp, which is a horror-based line or whatever you want to call it, which I have another character, a book being worked on that goes into that as well. But I realized that I need to focus and streamline on what I'm doing, and just to see certain things to their conclusion. It's taken me a while to get to the point where I have 2 artists that I know can do, we're going to work together, and it's going to be consistent, and it's going to be over time. Because the Spicy Pulp book is a collaboration of a bunch of different people. So I might have people working on it that are all over the planet, and they work at different speeds, and they work at different, timelines. So putting a book together that's 60 pages with 3 artists, 2 colorists, and multiple cover artists, it gets to be a lot of work. And it doesn't always, I've been fortunate enough that I break even on these projects. But there's still huge right. I'm not knocking that at all. I'm just saying it's a huge amount of work to get to that point.
I frequently said on the show here that crowdfunded comics is one of the few businesses where you can spend a few $1,000s and come away walking away only having lost a few hundred.
Right.
If you're lucky. So if you're breaking even, that's a good place to be. Now, the campaign ends on or around October 5th or 6th.
6th, yeah.
And the delivery date is November. So that's like a month later. Are you nearly done with the book at this point?
Oh, the book is completely done. The issue is just timing with the printer and making sure that because there's been periodic paper shortages that I haven't experienced yet, other than a small thing where I had a specialty paper for covers from the last campaign that wasn't as available as I had to wait for. And then we're heading into the holiday season, so things kind of get backed up. But the only deal, the book is done completely.
Yeah.
So it's just the printing and the shipping.
Yeah, there's shortages on everything lately. As a fulfillment service for our own selves for crowdfunded people, it took me forever to find bags and boards to put things together for a while. It's like, what are they on that ship in the Suez Canal? Are they all on that thing that's stuck? And then
absolutely, you still have pretty decent weight. Like I just started buying in bulk because I knew they weren't going to be around, and I was calling in favors from people, and my printer had some, and then he cut me boards from his own stock, and it was tough. It was and I like things to be done as soon as possible. I want the books to be in your hands as close to after it's been funded as humanly possible, which there's circumstances out of my control. With Last Standstill Kickstarter, I had printed up advanced copies of issue 5 and 6, and we blew through those in the campaign, which I was extremely excited about. But then I was like, oh, that puts a delay in for this campaign, and I had hoped to launch at different times. But that's really my goal is everyone gets paid. The artists are all getting paid. The colorists, everyone that's making the book is paid long before I do the Kickstarter. So I'm outlaying a sizable chunk of money each time these books are, and I'm like, please God, let this thing fund so I can bounce back and then take care of the printer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we of course want you to make a profit. We joke about you coming out breaking even, but I don't want to see anybody lose their shirt doing the crowdfunded thing. I'd much for everybody to just become fan successes that start enjoying the fruits of their labors. I mean, this is 15,000 already of a 10,000 goal, and I guess some people might be thinking well, how in the world could be breaking even? What do you got to invest in a comic book? Because I've seen goals with like $500, and they're like, yeah, I've got the money, it's already been done. And of course, maybe it's done on newsprint and it's black and white, and your brother-in-law did the art or something, but it's a substantial outlay to get a good artist who can turn in things on time, I guess.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of stuff involved. There's a lot of stuff that people don't realize. I mean, even when you exclude the sweat equity, which is huge. I mean, I've spent 3 straight days packing and shipping campaigns. That's just sweat equity. It's not like you're doing a work for hire gig where you go in and you get a page rate and you hand in your script and then you get comps 6 months later or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I love it. I'm having more fun making comics now, I think, on a whole, than I have. I mean, there's been obviously bright spots of doing Jonah Hex and some other books. But I have been really enjoying the process of learning more that I didn't know before, learning more about production, post-production, trying to become a better writer by actually looking at how lettering is put together and rewriting stuff based on art instead of just writing a script and handing it away. So I changed my script writing depending on what kind of script it is. Usually I just write, this happens on page 1, that happens on page 2, and then you draw it and I'll come in and go back in and dialogue and figure out what to do with the puzzle pieces, as long as we have the general cinematography and everything there. But yeah, there's more fees. Shipping is insane. Yep. Especially overseas. It pains me that there's an entire global market out there that we can't sell comics to because it's cost 3 times the cost of a comic just to ship.
That's what we do. That's what we do here.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter takes their percentages. So whatever, I mean, there's a huge chunk of change that goes to that. And then they don't see the back end of it. So, not all the pledges go through, and you're juggling all these different things. And then printing is expensive because you're printing. If I knew I had 10,000 copies I could do, the printing becomes infinitely more affordable than it is if you're doing 600 copies of something.
Sure.
But that said, those are things that people don't realize from the external side. They may see the numbers go up, and they may say, well, you made this money. It's not made money. It's played against expenses and future costs. So far, like I said, I've been lucky to manage the projects the way that I've managed them because I've been doing this for a while. But it's really a labor of love more than anything else. And then, I play for the back end game. I love hiring artists. I love that I'm working with people whose dream it is to draw comics or color comics or work in comics. That I'm starting the ball on that. And then the Kickstarter backers who are amazing are helping that. It's all part of the community thing, which you don't necessarily have that same feeling when you're working as a work for hire gig. You're part of a machine on the corporate side, or you're part of a publishing house, but you don't necessarily have that direct contact unless you're at a convention. But this way, I feel like, my books go out to people who want them, who read them, who don't buy them automatically, who don't buy them because they've been reading that character or that book since they were, 15 or whatever. So that part of it is very exciting to me and very, very much drives me.
So when you go to print, do you have a formula in mind that you're like, okay, I've sold 100, so I need to print 125 or 150 to cover returns, to have stock for backfilling for catch-up tiers, to take to conventions when you can go to them now?
Absolutely. I mean, you definitely have to build in because you have damages, you have lost packages, you have, I don't know sometimes how angry postal workers are for the things that I've seen happen to packages. I know it's not, and I know it's a thankless job and whatever. I'm not going to criticize them for that, but sometimes I'm like, you went out of your way to put this thing in a wood chipper, because if I pack everything myself, I know what went into it, and I'm like, you really had to go out of your way. But yeah, it's just, there's so many elements to it that's not just that was such a refreshing change, and usually taking on more work is not what people want to do, but I found it to be very cathartic and very much like I was doing something more than just having an idea in my own closed space. And I like that element of it. And realistically speaking, the Kickstarter is 80% not writing. It's crazy.
Gives an appreciation for every single person that was involved with making of the comics before, because they're all you now.
No, and there's what those people were doing, and I had tried coloring and failed miserably, but learned a lot from that and learned a lot more respect for people who do coloring than I had before. Not that I didn't, but it was like you don't really know until you're doing it what goes into a certain thing. Like you can sit on your couch, you can criticize a play in a football game, but you can't make that play in a million years. So realistically, you don't have a leg to stand on. But
yeah,
just
doing these interviews, I'm learning about the industry because I'm like, what do you mean you have a flatter? What's the flatter do? I've always seen colors, and I've learned what, not that I can do it, but I've learned at least what it is. Mm-hmm. And as far as lettering goes, I've taken a real appreciation for that now, because lettering is probably the most thankless job in the presentation of a comic book, because if you did your job right, nobody sees.
Yep.
Screw it up, it's glaring. So,
or if you do it certain ways, like sometimes I look at stuff and I'm like, oh, what did they do here? Like, oh, I gotta try that. I want to see, what process was, and then, like, sometimes it's hard to find. I mean, there's some stuff online, but there's not a lot of stuff online where you're like, where's that trick? Like, how do you do that? And how time consuming is it to make certain word balloons look the way that they look? And then there's huge mistakes. I did some word balloons. I look at them every time. I'm like, I can't believe I have to go and re-letter all these pages because I can't look at this word balloon anymore. What the hell was I thinking?
Yeah,
the style of it, or I want to make a robot word balloon and it just looks so horrible.
Or sometimes just word breaks are like in a really unfortunate place or something. Or the word balloons are like, my favorite is when you got person A and person B, and then person A is talking and person B is talking, and their word balloons are crossed because that's the order of the dialogue. I'm like, maybe I should have flipped the people or something. I don't know. But,
well, I realized that too. I had to start saying left, right. I want this character on the left, this character on the right, because when I line up their balloons, and everyone's different. One of the things you don't really see anymore is people there's only a few people, and most of them I ran into on Jonah Hex, that would lay out the balloon placement. A lot of them are European, so they would just go in and they'd give you an overlay of where they think the word balloons should go, so as to flow better through the page and not obstruct their artwork and everything else. And I don't know how many people do that now.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I haven't seen thought balloons in a long time. Or
I do this sometimes for fun, for retro fun. Yeah.
Yeah, they've gone away. They've gone the way of the I don't know what you call it. Not really a text box, because they get used a lot of times now for carrying over word balloons when the person's not on the panel. But you know, the editorial narrative. You know, the meanwhile back at the Hall of Justice kind of stuff.
Right, the shortcuts. Yep.
Yeah, I miss those. Those were fun. Anyway, we are at our hour mark, just a little bit over it. So Justin, I want to say, you know, thank you to you for bringing Spicy Pulp to our viewers tonight. This looks like a fun book. This is the kind of book that I would happily get behind and back and recommend to our viewers.
Thank you for that.
And with that, I want to ask our viewers, you don't have to like the video. If you don't like me, I can't make you like me. But if you wouldn't mind sharing the video and letting, you know, people in your social circles come in, see Justin's work, decide for themselves that they would also like to get behind it and back it, that would be greatly appreciated. Would mean so much. And as always, we're thankful that you're here in the chat. We don't have a show without you. And as always, we just hope that you had a blast while you were here. Good night.
Good night.